beautiful muses, and welcome to CosmoMuse Tarot. Today we have a really beautiful reading. It is inspired by eclipse season. I know that as this reading comes out, we will have just come out of the first of this. There's usually 2 eclipses in an eclipse season, so we will have had our first one, the Libra solar eclipse or the new moon eclipse in Libra, but we will also be moving toward the full moon eclipse, which will be in Scorpio, I believe, in Taurus. 2 weeks, about 2 weeks from when this comes out, maybe a tiny bit less. But in the thick of eclipse season, it doesn't matter when you come here. You don't, this could be a year later and not in eclipse season, just kind of inspired by eclipses. And so I want to look at specifically, I am being inspired by the eclipse that will have just happened, the Libra solar eclipse, which is going to be falling on what's called the South Node. So eclipses come when the sun and moon either align or oppose, so new or full moon, or align or oppose on the the lunar nodes, which are the axis of where the moon is currently aligning with our plane around the sun. Don't worry if you don't understand that, but there are 2 types. There's actually 4 types of eclipses. So these nodes, there's a north node and a south node, and they have very different meanings. One is sort of an ending beginning spot, and the other is like the halfway spot. And that's where that Libra eclipse is coming in. And then one can be the other way that these happen are new or full moons. So something where we're creating some intention, and something where we're in the fertility of something. So this is I'm not going to pay too much attention to that aspect. I just really want to pay attention to the South Node aspect of this. And again, it doesn't matter if you come at a totally different time. I'm just pulling this energy for this reading. So you may be drawn here when you are personally going through kind of a South Node energy thing. So it's the halfway mark of a 19-year journey. And it's a mark where we come into some kind of personal wholeness, or something is coming into a certain wholeness, a certain system, a certain skill, and readying to be put more out into the world in a broader way, where you have to open up to cooperation, compromise, letting go of full control of what's been sort of developed and honed. And so it's a time when a lot of edits take place, where you have to kind of let go of what's not been productive and really refine and systemize and cut the wheat from chaff type of thing. Really kind of come into a rhythm and out with anything that is sticky about that, anything that is weighing it down, anything that is not productive. So this reading in general is about looking at where in your life what in your life or in you is starting to come into a more honed, refined sense of wholeness. So we're going to look at that first. What is that thing? What is really coming together here? But then we're also going to look at what are the edits being made to make that more refined. What are you having to let go of? What are the cuts that are having to be made? So coming into that wholeness, that productivity, that place where we can really create some abundance in our life can actually be a little bit painful, because it means we need to let go of certain things that aren't working, and sometimes we have attachments to those things. We have comfort in them. We've put a lot of effort into them. So we're going to look at both sides of this, like what should you be celebrating and really focusing on and finding beauty and refinement in, and what is it you're needing to maybe kind of let go at this point in order for that to really come into its own. So we have 4 piles to look at. We've got pile 1 with a clear crystal quartz. Pile 2 is with Moonstone. Pile 3, we have a clear crystal Akashic quartz. And pile 4, we've got Sunstone. So take a minute to feel into these piles, feel into which one is calling you in, that has a message about something that is really cultivating, refining, coming into a wholeness in you. Okay, you can pause here and take as much time as you need to feel into that, and then timestamps will be in the description so you can jump straight to your reading, and I will see you there. All right, see you guys. Hello, pile 1. Welcome to your reading all about what is coming into a refinement, a more whole, systemized, productive, abundant place in your life. And through that, what might actually also be editing out of your life in order for that to refine. So we are first going to look at the side of what is the thing that is, so special, that's refining, that's really coming into a certain wholeness. So I'm going to pick we have the card that was part of the pile you picked, and I'm going to pick 2 more oracle cards, and I kind of want to flip them all over together to kind of read them at once. For some reason, I'm feeling that need to kind of like really synergize them instead of seeing one at a time and then synergizing them. So let's get those cards out. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We've got environmentalist. You're an earth angel who was born to protect, nurture, and teach about nature and the animals. Okay, and we're gonna not be so these cards are a little bit literal, but I'm gonna try and make them a little less specific and literal so it's more broadly connects to people. The Siren. And primordial. Okay. This to me feels like something you've really, looking at this siren versus primordial, it's like the mermaid going on the way down into the depths of the water, and then primordial something coming out of those primordial waters, and with that potential to really become some kind of solid, summited, peak mountainous terrain. So I'm going to say that like whatever it is that is kind of coming into a wholeness and a refinement here has come from the depths of you. This is something that is very much so in alignment with you. It really comes from an inner intrinsic place within you. It means a lot to you. You've put a lot of very deep, very intuitive depth of understanding, kind of awareness to this thing. With environmentalists, I want to just say that it's something that, I mean, it could be very literal for you. Maybe you are someone that has fought for the environment, cultivated practices in your company or a company you work for that uphold certain environmental standards, or just someone that really tends to and cares for land and nature and animals. But in a more broad sense, this could just be kind of like coming into a greater wholeness of feeling connected to the earth and the 3D realm, like really understanding the form and function of life, really understanding how to mold life, what you want life to feel like in your senses. And having because of that, having a deep respect for the 3D realm. Not just the earth, but anything that's been created that you can hold and touch and feel and smell and see and listen to, which I guess listening to isn't always 3D. But I don't know, there is something coming through about your senses, a deep command of, a deep productivity, systemization around something in the 3D realm, and for some of you, more literally, environmentalism. It does feel with the siren artistic. It does feel like something that has come from your soul, from your depths, from something you mined in your personal source material. It's very personal, whatever this is. Very beautiful. Okay, let's get a sense of what it is you are maybe needing to cut out of your life in order for this to really hold its purpose, come into its wholeness, find its rhythm. There's things that maybe haven't shown themselves to be productive here, that have held this back, that you may still be attached to because you've put effort and energy into, or on the other hand, you may just have hit a wall with it and are ready to kind of let go. But let's look at what it is you're needing to kind of let go at this point in order for this to really find its unobstructed rhythm. Treasured memories. Yeah, this is very personal territory for you guys. Something. Let's see with the other card before we really get into this. The deer and oat healing. I get the sense that some of the efforting that you've been putting in to what we've talked about has come from doing things maybe in a way that parents or siblings or certain community from when you were young did things, or having attachment to people from an older part of your life. Understanding this purpose, so bending who you are, bending what it is you've been trying to do around this sort of very soul-sourced, artistic, 3D, sensual stuff. Trying to bend yourself to do something in a way where people you have strong past attachments to understand and connect to it. But you just need to kind of let go of who does or doesn't connect to what this is, who finds it productive and purposeful, and do it for you, not do it for these old attachments, for any kind of response or respect or acknowledgement from people from your past that really may not have any. What I get is just it's holding you back from just being true and pure in this depth material. I do see that you've done a lot of healing around this. I think you have a lot of already awareness. It's like you're aware that this is an issue for you and it holds you back, and you've done a lot of healing. And this is saying that at this juncture, all that work you've put in to kind of heal that, let go of that, you've gotten to the point where you need to get, and it's time to, you know, like sometimes we can get addicted to healing. And sometimes, you know, there's a time and place for that. We can always heal more. We can always do better. We can always clear more blockages. But when we're talking about life cycles, sometimes there's a point when you need to just get on with things. And this is what this is saying. It's like, for what this is, the healing you've done to kind of let go of caring so much about what people from your past might be holding you back and how you're doing things. You've gotten the healing you need to get, and it's time to get on with it and just kind of make that tough edit. Make that tough, like, you know what? It's just time to do it, to let go of caring who thinks what about what, and be pure and true to my authenticity, to my inner self, to my compass and my purpose. I just want to reiterate, like, I think you've done some important healing here. I think you've gotten what you need to get at this point, and now it's saying it's time to just cut that cord and really commit to this because it's coming into wholeness. I want to roll one more dice here, just getting a zodiac energy around this. Taurus. This has to do, it's just reiterating, it's like something about feeling valued by things that are in your past that maybe aren't meant to go into your future. Old values, people from old parts of your life. It's just confirmation here that it's time to let go of things from childhood. Influences, people, values from childhood to really solidify this. It's time to let it go. It's time to move on. You have had the healing you need here, and it's time to kind of just let that integrate and get on with it. For some of you, someone with important Taurus factors in their chart may be a key here too, may point toward. So it doesn't have to be, but it's just an extra thing if that hits for you, like, oh yeah, when you say this, I think of this person, and oh, they do have like a Taurus sun or moon or rising, something like that. That doesn't have to be the case for everyone. I feel more broadly that it's about, I can relate the signs of the zodiac to developmental processes in life, and Taurus does rule that childhood time when we are enculturated. And so it's like letting go of old enculturation, old values, people that have a hold on us, that we still try to live up to certain values with the people we were brought up with. We all go in different directions, and my guess is attachments you have there and recognition you're seeking from those things don't care as much as you think, aren't paying as much attention as you think. Maybe they don't resonate, but I don't think that they have like a judgment or care. They have their own things. They're dealing with this in their own way. You know, they're trying to find their own path and their own authenticity. And so it's sort of like just an extra message around some healing here is like, anything you think you need from people from your past, it just doesn't matter anymore. There's not even judgments there if they think this is weird, you know, if they think this is weird. They don't really care though. They have their own things that they're like, probably people think I'm weird for this. They have their own struggles in life. They have their own things that they're worried about. It's just not something to care about. So let go of that final caring what someone or some people or some old community might think. They're on with their life. They're in their own trenches with this, doing their own things, trying to progress their own authenticity and individualistic values that may break from values they were brought up with. And I think just at this point, it's like my sense is any specificity that you can identify with there, they don't care anymore. They may not be interested in this thing about you, but they don't really have a judgment or think about it. You know, they're just like, yeah, they're doing their thing. They're dealing with their own things. So it's just like, get on with it, move on. Don't care what people from a past may think or feel about who you are becoming, or what this thing that whatever this connects to for you, whatever that is to you. It's time to do it for you and do it for those that connect to it. It's time to just move on with it. Yeah, very cool. Okay, we are going to pick some tarot cards now to get some context here. Anything else Spirit wants to bring through about this? I'm hoping to find maybe a little bit more specificity. I feel like this was a little bit broad and vague, which it may just need to be because of the nature of a group reading. But I do have an intention to see if any little more specificity comes through about this. But we'll just see what comes through. I'm not strictly sticking to that. We're going to pick 4 cards. So 5 of Swords. Four of Wands, beautiful. The Hierophant. I definitely think of what I said about Taurus here. Old enculturation, time for it to go. King of Cups. I'm not getting more specificity of what this is, and I think it's just because it's so different for each of you, other than it being from a real deep soul place, a little bit from an artistic space, connected to your senses or the 3D realm. Hopefully that's enough for each of you to kind of know pretty immediately what that is for you. But I am getting context around some scenarios around this that might help you to identify this if you're still sort of like, oh, I don't know. You are you've really mastered this, and especially coming through the Cups realm with a King. And in this deck, there's a female king of each suit and a male king for each suit. So there's actually 8 kings in this deck, and you got the female King of Cups. So mastery, authority, command here, but through like a more feminine, like intuitive, but you know, the Cups is already kind of intuitive and emotional and feeling and creative. And then you have the feminine energy. So there's maybe some mysticism here, some mystery. It doesn't surprise me with the Siren and Primordial coming through here. A lot of you this could be around mysticism. It could be around esoteric things. It could be around things that are just like very feminine in nature, but that you feel like you have a command. You have developed a command and strength, and you need to trust that. And I like it kind of coming out after the Hierophant. It's time to kind of let go of childhood things, old cultural programming, and trust your own authority, your own new sense of enculturate. You're about to enculturate others with the command and mastery you have in whatever this is to you. It's time for you to override that, and you're ready. You're so ready. You're so strong. You're so mastered. You just need to trust yourself. And then these two cards, I don't know why I'm kind of reading them mixed up in different, pairs together for some reason. These felt like they went together, so I'm like, well, these must go together too. 5 of Swords and 4 of Wands. Yeah, it's time to pick up the flower, put down the sword that creates, wounds. And that has to do with you feeling wounded by others because you care about. It is a little bit connected to this Hierophant and the Taurus and what we talked about and what you're letting go. It's like time to let go of needing certain people or groups or categories of your life from your past to see you in a certain way. They just aren't. But at the same time, like I said, they don't care though. They're not like judging you. They just maybe can't see your specialness, but they don't see you as, they're just in a different place. They don't really even see you. So it's time to just like put down this shadow of caring about those past associations, because all it's doing is hurting you, and they're not even looking at you. They will never see you, but they're not even looking. They don't care. So it's just like, stop hurting yourself. Pick up the flower, get on with it, see your beauty, attract those things that find what you're doing is beautiful, because you have plenty of nectar that is attracting plenty of things in your life around this. This is so beautiful. It's gorgeous. It has nectars. It has blossoms. It's alluring and attracting and fragrant and visually stunning. And it's just time to get on with that. Own it, be it, put it out there, and just attract what's supposed to attract to it and own it. And it will bring so much community and so much celebration and so much beauty into your life. That is what's coming. And the good or bad news, however you want to take it, is the edits that come, if you don't do it for yourself, the universe enforces it. The edit is coming. This is happening whether you like it or not, whether you know how to make that cut or not, it gets cut. And so you will move on. You will have this happen where you just kind of let go of these things that are holding you back from really just stepping into your beauty in what it is that's coming into wholeness here. It's time to get on with it, to celebrate it, to step into and really celebrate and honor and be in the beauty of what you've developed here, what you've systemized and cultivated and created skill in. It's just time to be in it. Really gorgeous. So even though sometimes these edits can hurt, I feel excited for you because I see what that edit is going to bring, and I see you standing so much more powerfully and concretely and surely in your power. It's just time. It's just time. Because it's like, one last thing, it's like you kind of see yourself as this little girl. I don't care what gender you are, you see yourself as this child figure that's still kind of looking up to whatever it is that enculturated you, the stories from your childhood, the people, the things, the communities, the family, the whatever, the peers. And it's keeping you as a little being. That's how you aspects of yourself see yourself. You can't like get past that. But the edit that's coming, whether you do it for yourself or the universe does it for you, is like, no, we're done with this. We're done with seeing yourself as a little creature. You are a strong, mountainous, primordial, commanding, masterful, compassionate, beautiful, turbulent, emotional powerhouse that is a rock for others, that you are going to really impact and influence. But you need to stand in your strength, and it's going to come one way or another, whether you do it or the universe enforces it, it's coming. And so even though that may for some of you feel like a strange and difficult shift, I see the other side of that, and it's so amazing, and I'm excited for you to be at that place because you're going to be so strong. All right, that's where I'm going to leave you guys. If this resonated, I always appreciate the things, like, share, and subscribe. Just grateful for all of you that come and support me time and again, but also incredibly always grateful for kind and thoughtful comments to just feel that humanness behind the numbers. All right, I hope you guys have a beautiful day wherever and whenever you are. All right, see ya. Hello, Pile 2. Welcome to your reading all about what is something that is coming into a certain refinement and wholeness and productivity in your life, but also secondarily looking at what kind of cuts and edits are taking place that have been slowing down this wholeness or not working to systemize and make productive whatever this thing is that is really coming into its refinement. What are you having to kind of cut or edit in order for this to really come into some beautiful rhythmic place in your life? Excuse me. Okay, so first we're going to look at what is that thing? What is kind of coming into this beautiful, refined, whole place in your life. We're going to look at 3 oracle cards to kind of decipher what this might be. So we have first the one that is connected to the pile you chose. And then we're going to pick 2 others, and then I kind of want to turn them all over at once to get a more distilled look at what that might be versus looking at each of them individually. Oops. Let's take the top one. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Ooh, career change. You're embarking on a career that brings you the joy and abundance you desire and deserve. The Tear. And Silence. Wow, these are very interesting concoction of cards. Well, obviously, this does have to do with some kind of achievement, something that you have a mastery around, or more literally, career. It doesn't have. I'm trying to read this card that in each deck is a little bit literal and a little more of a broad sense to make it connect for everyone, you know, for a group collective message. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, so sorry if I cough a little. It's interesting that it's coming as career change. This makes me think that whatever is coming into this refinement in your life, a certain wholeness, maybe it was something you were doing on the side, or training in, working really hard at while you did something else, like maybe you had a day job you know, the waiting tables while you've been in college or something. So I feel like career change isn't necessarily like you're shaking your life up and you're doing something new. I feel like it's something that you've really been working to find mastery and authority in, is now coming into stake its claim in your life, whether that is career or just through something that you have some authority and mastery in, holding some position in. It doesn't necessarily have to be your job, but for a lot of you, I think it will be. So the tier in this archetype deck has a lot to do with having an effect of like really knowing how to create releases in people, like really being able to come from your heart, from a really feeling and heart-centered place with a really open emotionality that kind of gives that opening, that permission for people to have releases, to feel what they need to feel. So it makes me feel like for some of you, this may have something to do with like things around counseling or really deeply felt art, or something around family, even nurturing. Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting, but then we have this silence at the same time. And that's a very interesting concoction here. I almost need to draw, wasn't planning on drawing a tarot for this, but I want to know what silence, I feel like I need some kind of context or confirmation around how silence plugs into this. For some of you, that may mean something to you, but in like a broader context, Five of Wands, chess, and in this deck, it's like a chess, plain chess. This is interesting. What I'm feeling through this is that like it's kind of expanding on this thing of like maybe you've been working really hard on something on the side, really training on something either as like a hobby or just a skill or a talent you've wanted, but sort of in your back pocket, you've always held this vision of this being something that could take the place of what kind of a role you had been fulfilling. But you may have had to be strategic about this, be a little bit closed-lipped about the fact that you were even training or working really hard to do something totally different, because that may have upset. Let's just, as an example, say this really does literally have to do with a career. That may have, like maybe you had a prominent position in your own career and you still wanted like your employers to feel invested in you and give you promotions and raises, but had they known that you weren't really fully in your heart committed to that and you were actually training to do something else, it may have like put your livelihood and your position in jeopardy. So it's like maybe you had to kind of keep quiet for very strategic reasons that you had been working towards a change. And I feel like it unlocked kind of tapping into the tear in a more intuitive sense of what's coming through is like, I think it's unlocked something, whatever you're changing to, whatever you've worked hard to kind of create in you as a viable skill or mastery or authority has unlocked something in you that's much more authentic and pure to you. And it's like your heart's been unlocked, but you really had to do this in a strategic, kind of quiet way. The other way this may be is that like the nature of what you've been working to kind of build some mastery or authority in, the nature of it may be more more personal, more soulful in nature, something that is hard to even really articulate. And so you just had to kind of go about and do it, train in it, hone this, whatever this is to you, in sort of like your own process and your own way, maybe even like creating your own curriculum around it. So it's like, it's possible that the other reason why other people may not have seen this coming for you is like you've had to kind of find your own path in this, and that's been hard to show or talk about in a holistic way, or really you know, and like maybe it's just like been very intuitively led, and suddenly you see that all these little things you've been working at and piecing together for yourself from a very soulful place suddenly are congealing into something that is more whole and coherent that you didn't realize was going to happen. And so even to you, maybe it happened in a little bit of a silent way. But it was like all these different chess pieces being moved around, and suddenly you realized you were in this whole game, not just kind of playing with figurines. It was like, oh, this is part of this whole big picture and this whole plot and this whole culture. I didn't realize I wasn't just sort of tinkering with little toys that were separate from one another. So whatever resonates for you, I think there's different scenarios here, like purposely keeping something under wraps, something kind of coming together in a surprising way for you, or just not being able to articulate and kind of having your own curriculum of creating some kind of mastery for yourself. And just so on the surface of life, people didn't really realize what you'd been up to. Whichever of those resonates for you is kind of what's, however that resonates for you, whichever one matches for you is what you should go with. Okay, we are now going to look at what kind of sort of cuts and edits may need to be made. What has been holding this back? What has not been productive about it that it's time to cut, even if you've spent a lot of time on it? We're just at that make or break time that some things are now seen as productively helping this, and some things are seen as it kind of holding it back, not really plugging in correctly. And so what are those things? What's needing to be cut now in order for this to really come into its refinement, its wholeness, its productivity? Transformation. And, whoops. The snail and huckleberry, trust in the invisible. This is interesting, and it very much so relates to what we've already talked about. It's just flipping the coin, that it's saying that whatever you have really worked and honed and created this kind of mastery or authority in has now transformed, and it's transformed you, and it's transforming some aspect of your life. And it's sort of like you have to let go of that silence, of that under wrap, of that not articulating what has been kind of going on for you or coming together for you, because suddenly something that had been in this chrysalis that was like goo inside of this protective barrier. So like it just wasn't, it was hard for anyone to understand or see, and maybe you had to protect it because of the delicate nature of it. But suddenly you're coming out, this thing has started to emerge as a butterfly, and so now it's very visible. And this trust in the invisible is saying it's time to let go of that under wraps. It's time to really step into this, to show it. It's not that this aspect wasn't productive and needs to be cut. It's just like that phase is done, and there's no more, you can't sit in the chrysalis anymore. You can't sit in the secretiveness of this anymore, the silence of it. It's time for that silence to be broken, and for this to be shown, and for it to come out into the world and be understood, seen, shown, and trust that what you built in the invisible, in the silence, is beautiful like a butterfly. And it's time to kind of like, yeah, let go of being in the shadow, behind the scenes, under wraps, in a protective barrier, whatever it is to you. It's time to let go of that. That served a function, but it's not part of what's ultimately going to be productive about this, and something that is going to create some abundance or some rhythmic, systemized wholeness, something in your life that creates some kind of systemed expansion and abundance of something. You have to let it out. You have to let it fly. You have to let it be seen now. Very cool. Okay, we are now going to pick some tarot cards to get any other context that wants to come through here. Anything important that has not been revealed about this yet that should be. Look, we've got the butterfly again. Yeah, 8 of Pentacles. And that's picking up on the whole purpose of this reading, 8 of Pentacles. If there were a card that I would pick that would represent what this reading is, it would be either the Hermit or the 8 of Pentacles. It's about this new thing that you've really honed and refined and found skillfulness in, that's now ready to be exchanged upon in the world. And this is just confirming that you are at that point, and it is as beautiful as a butterfly and needs to be seen and shown and let free to fly. I'm going to pick 3 more tarot. 7 of Swords. Knight of Wands. And one more. Oops, that just came right out. 8 of Swords. Interesting. Yeah, there's that 8 of Swords, that very ending card, is absolutely confirming, look, the wings again too, that there's some reason, there's something about what is now coming into wholeness that, yeah, it had to be like caged. It felt a bit trapped. You grew your wings anyway, but you were in some kind of confinement. But the cage is opening. It's time to let this be free. It's time for the story of this to evolve. It's time to show what you grew despite feeling caged, despite feeling like you weren't free to do this, to develop whatever this is. But the cage is opening. You are seeing differently. This has transformed your own perceptions and perspective. and you suddenly see the opening. Like, I think this cage was always ajar, but it's like you didn't, you couldn't see that from the angle you were seeing things. But because you just continued to grow and work on something despite feeling like it had nowhere to go, it changed you from the inside, where you can now realize you haven't looked at where this could go, what it could do for you, how it could actually free you. It's like maybe you've done this out of compulsion, and now you're seeing that it's actually has the ability to free you, and it always did. You just didn't know how to see that, but now you do see it, and it's ready to be let free. Then we have the Seven of Swords and the Knight of Wands. Again, with the Seven of Swords, this particular card, look at her protecting these eggs. It's like there's predators here. There's something you had to protect about what you were really honing in your life, or as a skill, or as a career potentiality. It was like you really had to hide this. There's predators, there were people or things out to get something in your life that you had to kind of hide or protect this other thing you were working on. But it's a thing of beauty. Whatever this is, it's a thing of beauty. I look at the tear, and I look at this kind of serpenty figure that has grown blossoms all over its skin. And it's like, this is again like transforming you. You know how skins can shed their snake, and so it can be, the serpent can be a symbol of like everlasting life or eternity, as well as sort of renewal of vitality. Instead of shedding a skin here, we're seeing a skin that is blossoming, like this thing that you had to protect or do in silence or do under wraps for some reason, or that you didn't even know you were doing. It was just this compulsion that you kind of kept close to your chest. It's like the new skin underneath whatever you've just shed around a change is magnificent. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's so deeply heart-opening. You know, I think of blossoms in their prime as a very heart-opening energy. And so whatever you have been honing and protecting and cultivating in yourself is really heart-opening for you, but also for whoever wants, you know, now that it's time to be seen, it's strong enough to be seen. It's the right timing to kind of come out with this and show it, and things have hatched and your skin has grown strong and beautiful. It will really open hearts. It's opened your heart. This transformation has been heart opening for you, but as you show it, it will have that same effect on others. It will be very heart opening. And we have Knight of Wands, which is like, this is coming very quickly. And then just look at the skill here. To train a horse to jump through an elevated, fiery hoop is like magnificent in terms of that the way I'm relating career is like a mastery. It's just like a really impressive mastery coming through, something you've really intricately trained for, and created skill in and mastery in and magnificence in, showmanship in. Yeah, I do feel a certain showmanship that's about to come out of this. And it will really wow people. It will bring their hearts alive. It will bring a tear to their eye. And you will be seen as like transformed in such a surprising, shocking way to people that just because this has been done in such silence, in such under wraps, in such protected ways. And like, so on the surface, it's like nobody has seen even like really a hint of this. And suddenly it's like you're on a horse jumping through a fiery hoop with floral skin and butterfly wings and angel wings. And it's like, what just happened here? You're going to feel that about yourself, even though you have some sense that you've been cultivating something. But the outside world is going to be like, what just happened? Where did this come from? Amazing, you know? But it's time to show it. It's time to, this thing has kind of grown into itself, and it's time to, the strength is there, the opening is there, and it's time to put this out. And the thing is, with what's inspired this reading, this South Node kind of eclipse energy, is this is happening, this edit, this transformation, this refinement is happening whether you take action and make those decisions or not. Things get enforced by the universe here. So whether, if you don't take the action steps to show this, the universe is going to enforce that somehow it is showed anyway. It's always better to do it ourselves, because if the universe forces the issue, it can be more turbulently felt. So it's time to find your daring, to recognize it's the right time to show your stuff. Let it fly, whatever this means to you, whatever this authority, mastery, and skill is to you that could potentially change a role you fulfill in the world. It's time to let it fly. Okay, that's where I'm going to leave you guys. If this resonated, I always appreciate the things like, share, subscribe, and I'm so grateful for everyone that comes, repeatedly to these readings, and especially grateful when there are kind and thoughtful comments. It just helps me feel connected to the humanness out there. So I hope you guys have a beautiful day wherever and whenever you are. All right, see ya. Hello, Pile 3, and welcome to your reading all about what is coming into a place of refinement and wholeness and productivity in your life that could create a new sense of abundance around something in your life. And then secondarily, in the life cycle of things, when things come into this place, it tends to come with edits that need to be made. It's a time of make it or break it. It's a time of seeing what has been productive and what hasn't. And so looking at the things that maybe you've worked really hard at around what this thing is that's coming into its refinement, that just don't plug in. You've maybe worked really hard and tried to make some aspect of it work, some method, some extension of it work, but it's just never been productive, and it can be hard to let go of those things. But ultimately, there are usually things we have to let go of. It's sort of like the harvest time of separating wheat from chaff, and getting to the true purpose, use, and purity of something, and discarding what has ultimately just gotten in the way. And we may have attachments to some of those things. We may have worked really hard for years on some of those things, but we have to make that tough edit, that tough cut to allow what is coming into its refinement to really thrive. Okay, so we're going to pick 3 oracle cards. The card connected to your pile selection being one of them, to get an idea of what this is. It's kind of a general sense, since this is like a group or collective reading. It's a little bit conceptual so that it's broad and allows you guys to make your own associations. So we've got, artist. Engaging in artistic activities is beneficial to your career and every other area of your life. So something artistic kind of coming into its refinement, into its wholeness. A lot of different things can be. I want to expand this as artistry, because I feel like there's plenty of us out there that may relate to being an artist, but I think there's plenty of people out there that also may not traditionally see themselves as artists, but there may be something that they create an artistry or an artfulness in. And so I'm kind of going to expand and broaden that concept here, that there's something coming into an artistry and artfulness, and for some of you, a literal artistic kind of talent or skill coming into its own. But some kind of artistry coming into its own in your life that is creating a certain productivity for you, really helping some aspect of you to be able to thrive and get sort of the opportunities and openings and exchanges that you've really worked hard and hoped to see for many years is now kind of coming into being. Okay, let's look at the other 2 cards, the Temple and Air. Yeah, the artistry could have to do with your intellectual facilities. It could have to do with writing, ideas. And then the Temple, there's like a sacredness you've given to this. Like maybe you've really made your mind or something you would connect to the mental realm as something artful. You've developed writing, being a connector of people and ideas, a networker. I'm trying to think of arts that have to do with air or mind. Just, like, writing, communications, connecting. I think there's something about this that you've made very rhythmic and very ritualized in your life, which has given it a sense of reverence and, sacredness around it. Because of the respect you've given to whatever this is that you've developed, there is kind of a sacred energetic around it that people kind of will show the respect to it that you've, the same quality of respect you have felt for this thing and given to this thing. It will receive that back now that it's ready to be like really refined and kind of put more out into the world. It will inspire a certain sacredness and reverence. True, beautiful, in terms of an artfulness here, it's like, this is just something that you hold in high regard. Not only have you developed something here for yourself, but the nature of what this is, you hold in high regard, you consider sacred. So as an example, say you are a writer. Not only have you cultivated a certain writing skill and talent through respect and rhythmic and ritualized ways that takes on an air of sacredness. That whole field, the way you feel about other writers, about, whatever it is, whether it's literature or essays or journalism, it's like you hold a sacred reverence for. You feel that way about the subject matter, the category in general. And it's just infused how you've developed this in you. And so what you produce inspires that as well, a certain reverence and sacredness. So yeah, really beautiful. Okay, we are now going to look at what it is that needs to be edited out, to be cut, what is not productive around this, that's holding this back from being truly refined. So we've got to the moon and back. Interesting. Let's get the other oracle card before we read into that too much. The beaver and birch, home. And that's interesting because the moon in astrology does relate to home. I think you've been a little bit isolated, dreamy in your imagination, hermiting. Just sort of focused in on what you're doing, focused in on your craft, focused in on your processes, what you're cultivating, like really in it. And it's like that's beautiful, and that's been helpful in many ways in developing this beautiful mental artistry that's coming through here. But at the same time, it's prevented you from having a balance of looking outward, of connecting this out in the world, of sort of capitalizing on this, of taking advantage of it, of what's the word I'm looking for? There's that spectrum of exploration to exploitation, and it's been all exploration. You've been digging in, you've been seeking, you've been a bit private about developing this, and you really haven't balanced it with exploiting this or utilizing it, turning it outward to work for you. And that's held you back, and it's now time to create some balance there. It's not saying, to me, this edit isn't saying like totally getting rid of that exploration and that inward seeking and that focus in on the task at hand. It's like it's saying that needs to be balanced now. You need to better put this out there, better put yourself into the world, find ways to exploit this, find ways to use it, find ways to capitalize on this. And the good news or bad news, however you feel about this, I mean, it's ultimately good news, but it can feel like difficult when we don't choose something, is that what inspired this reading, the South Node eclipse energy, which you can come here at any point, that doesn't matter, it's just what's inspired this reading, is that the eclipse energy will always enforce that something happens. The universe will step in and enforce that edit, enforce that cut, if you don't do it yourself. So you do have the choice to kind of do this at your own volition, but if you don't, the universe is stepping in to somehow enforce that this takes place. So, it's always better when we take that into our own hands, because if it is done by the universe's hands, it can create a little more turbulence in our life. Not that the universe wants to create turbulence, it's just that your free will hasn't really been involved in how it comes about. and we're pushed up against our resistances, versus if we just work through our resistances and try to do this a little on our own, we find that it ends up being a lot easier than we imagined, and kind of an opening comes there. But the good news is ultimately this is what's going to happen. This edit is happening. A balance is coming in. You will either decide to or be made to start exploiting this a little bit more, putting it out in the world a little bit more. Okay. Oh, let's roll. I've been rolling this astrology dice just to get some extra energy here too. Gemini, yeah, again, the mind, definitely things with, you know, and this could, I'm just trying to think of Gemini issues which relate to the air as well. So mental health, articulation, communication, community building, connection, writing, any intellectual pursuit, any of these things kind of connect into what is, you know, you've really cultivated an artistry and a sacredness around. So just reinforcing things we've already kind of touched into, but maybe expanding even a little more there. Okay, to end, we are just going to do 4 tarot cards to see anything else that we have not touched on that should be known about this. Any, or, you know, or even just any context that kind of fleshes it out more, or new information we have not touched yet. We've already seen confirmation, so I kind of feel like it's context coming, but we'll just see. We'll see what happens. I feel like this card wanted to come. King of Swords. Again, with the air, swords in the tarot is really connected to the air, the mind. So this is confirming not that just that you've created a viable skill and a viable refinement, but there's a real impressive mastery here. And in this particular tarot deck, there are actually 8 kings instead of 4. So each suit has 2 kings, one that is gendered male and one that's gendered female, and it doesn't matter what gender you are, except for that the gender in the card of the king has a slight distinction. And with the female King of Swords coming through is like a deep intuition, a deep inner knowing here, which I think connects to that sacredness being felt. There's something very intuitive, a little bit more feeling centered. With, you know, the mind can sometimes be a little bit of a trapping for us, but it's like you've connected your heart to your mind, and you have a real mastery with that, and a real know-how how to articulate and connect and commune with a really not only amazing articulation and charm, but with like a deep heart-centered way of being as well. Oops. Six of Pentacles. Yeah, this is ready to come into exchange. You're going to find a lot more people wanting to exchange, wanting to indulge in what you have to offer, wanting to support you even. Like if this was something, excuse me, if this were something where you were like making a product that had some written element to it, you could find, you know, like success with like a Kickstarter or finding investment. There are people really once you show this, once you swing into exploiting this a little bit, showing it a little bit, putting it out into the world and trying to capitalize on this a little bit, you will find that there are people that really want to engage with that and want to support it and want to invest in it and you in some way. Yeah. This card. This is my favorite card in any tarot deck. I just love this image. I want to live in that image. But Nine of Pentacles is absolutely a beautiful plug into the nature of this whole reading. Something coming into a refinement from your own instinct that's become very skillful and that now has the potential to create productivity and abundance in your life. And the Nine of Pentacles in particular has this, you know, a connection to Venus. So something about really staying in with the pleasure and beauty and softness of whatever this is, which I love seeing to balance out all this mental energy. I already felt sort of that balance with the temple thing, really grounding it with a little bit more slow, sacred energy instead of just this rapid mental burn. But this is just really even further grounding it for me, that there's some deep pleasure in what this is for you, and to not lose that, to stay connected to that, because that's really a deep key to what makes this thrive and makes this refined for you, is that you find so much pleasure and softness and beauty in it. A love for what you do here. And then last one, High Priestess. Yeah, I love this. I love this concoction. It's really just confirming, doubling down on the female aspect of this King of Swords, that there's a deep intuitive heart connection to this. It's not just mental energy for mental energy that's been refined and impressive and charming. It's deeper. It's very much so connected to heart, to intuition, to soul, to depth. Even some mysticism here. And it's like an earthy air energy coming in. It's like having these ideas and these articulations and these things you're wanting to connect, and community you're wanting to plug into, but knowing how to really ground it and feel it and mold something from that is sort of something coming through here, really knowing how to make this kind of tangible in a beautiful way somehow. Like one example would be, again, like going back into the writer thing, like maybe you've written a novel, or you now have this idea of a novel you want to write, but you, as much as you have this beautiful idea of a story, you have a beautiful idea of how that book should look, its size, its weight, how many pages, so how thick it is, what the cover illustration should look like, what the title should be, like something you can, you know, so there's some way, like, I just feel this thing of like having this deep heart, intuitive, soulful command of like how this mental artfulness finds some grounding and some tangibility that's really beautiful and connects into the senses somehow. Yeah, really gorgeous reading, you guys. This is beautiful what's coming through, and it's just, yeah, just urging you to really start to put this out there and see how you actually have a lot of support to be found, should you do so. I think you'll almost be warding off supporters or investors, or, you know, I mean, not necessarily warding off, but just, I think you'll be just really surprised by the kind of exchanges and backing and support you find when you put this out there in the world. I do feel a shyness about putting this out. yeah, and time to get over that. The universe is gonna kick your butt in that way if you don't do it for yourself, but it's happening. It's coming out into the light here. All right, beautiful, beautiful. I loved this pile so much. So anyway, if this resonated, I always appreciate the things, the likes and shares and subscribes. And I am so grateful for everyone that does repeatedly come back to my readings and supports my channel. And even further, feel a lot of gratitude towards the kind and thoughtful comments that come in. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm kind of sometimes spacey. It just helps me feel connected to kind of a human element out there. So, but I'm just happy for you to be here. Cherry on top if you leave a little emoji or something. All right. I hope you guys have a beautiful day wherever and whenever you are. Thanks. Hello, beautiful pile 4. Welcome to your reading all about something that is coming into a refinement into your life, into a more whole, productive, abundant, systemized place. So I'm going to use the card for your pile selection along with 2 other oracle cards to kind of get the nature of what this is. And then we're also going to look at, on the other side of this, a couple of oracle cards showing what might need to be edited out or cut right now in order for this thing that's coming into its productivity to really find its skillfulness, its refinement. In terms of life cycles, when things come to the point of this place in a life cycle that I'm talking about, which is near the South Node, it goes through, the nature of it is it goes through edits, and sometimes those edits can be really difficult because they may be things we've invested in, worked really hard at, but ultimately not everything meshes together. So, you know, an example of this might be that you have created a stationery brand and you've figured out the type of printing you like and the cardstock and done this and that and figured out your product catalog. But then like maybe you've tried to market in several different ways and some of those ways work and some of them don't, or maybe some of those products that you have are really taking off and some aren't. It's those times to kind of make those products of like, what's weighing us down? What's holding us back? How can we get more cohesive, more coherent? And so like maybe there's been experimentation and it's a little scattered or all over the place, and it's time to like really hone in on that fixed thing, on making that stationery brand really stand out in a niche with a really specific kind of way of being or things it does or styles and colors, and you know, I could get lost in that, but you get the idea. But maybe some of the things you have to cut you actually really loved, and maybe some of them were your like favorite things, but they're just not working, you know? And so we'll look at what those edits are going to be. So let's first look at what is the nature of this thing that is coming into its refinement, its wholeness, productivity, the potential to create, you know, some kind of abundance. Abundance can look many different ways. It's not always financial. There can be an abundance of health, abundance of land, abundance of children. I don't know. But, you know, this refinement and this productivity has the potential to create an abundance of something for you as well. So what is the nature of this? What are we looking at? What is kind of coming into this place of wholeness? So we've got school. The answer that you're seeking involves going to school. So it's likely a lot of you have been learning something. The dead end. Ooh, and I actually need to, this deck, there's only like 4 or 5 cards that don't have the title on. Okay, sorry, I had to shut that off so I didn't waste your time while I was looking for the book. So I'm going to just read this. It's Phenomena. And it says, life entered with its own exalted and intrinsic form, anonymous and primeval. Its inspired vocabulary is unknowable, yet its magnetic whisperings can descend into the heart of all matter, cradling and nurturing and gestating in the indifferent night, the magical light of creation. Magic, action, conception, form, and matter. So phenomena, dead end, and school. Very interesting. What I'm getting here, I feel like some way of being, like it's a literal whole path you've been on, was halted. There was like no way to go forward on a certain path you had chosen or that you were on. And it was like the only choice you had to find a new path, to find a path at all. It was like the only path that was open to you maybe was going to school, or you felt that your life was at a dead end. It wasn't going to progress much more unless you got some training. So this doesn't have to look like traditional school. It could be mentorship, training. But there was something where you had to learn something in a much deeper, in a much more rigorous, style, scholastic kind of style, in order to open new paths to you. And what I'm feeling here is that man, this is weird. Something just fractured. It was like there's 2 paths here. So I'm sorry, this reading may end up going a little long, but it just became clear that I think there are 2 totally different ways of reading this. That something coming into kind of a refinement is that life has opened up to you to follow an academic path, and there's something, you're coming into a productivity in that. In academia, in scholastic, it's time to take that path because that is the path you're supposed to take, and there's been like divine intervention, and there's productivity and refinement to be found on that path for you. The other read of this is what I was on before, is that like you came to a dead end and found the only way to kind of change course or elevate yourself or find a different direction was to get training in something, was to do some rigorous learning about something. And you're now at that point where this is assimilating in you, and phenomena is about to happen. Action is about to happen that will reopen a path where there used to be dead end. The way forward is now coming to you. So it's either you've done some schooling and something has now assimilated for you, and that is somehow now creating some phenomena in your life, where you are, leading you to this area where you now know how to be productive and systemized in it. Or there's something about being in a scholastic or academic environment where a certain productivity in you is really starting to flourish. So either way, and that, if it's the way of like being in academia, it doesn't mean you have to be a student. You could be a professor, you could work for the institution of academia, but something about school setting, about academia, where there's a certain productivity coming into being for you, where phenomena is about to happen. But either way, there was something where it was like the universe gave you a full stop and sort of enforced that you kind of go into this learning environment, whether you're coming out of it or finding your place within it. But there's something about to happen here. Phenomena, action, magic is about to happen here because something's assimilating. Yeah, interesting. It's a little bit mysterious, but also somewhat concrete in other ways. But yeah, learning, and having been blocked from moving forward because that was what you needed, the gardener. So we're now looking at, I'm ahead of myself here. We're now going to look at what the edits are. What are you needing to cut from your life in order for this to really thrive and come into its full productivity, its full refinement? What are the things that are weighing that down and preventing it from really coming into its purity here? So we've got the gardener, and the badger and ginkgo, healing wounds. Interesting. I do get that sense of like there's something you really needed to cultivate in yourself that was very different, and you really had to tend to and nurture. And in doing so, this healed some wounds that were kind of the source of this dead end for you. Something about re-entering the learning field. Cultivated something new in you, really cultivated a new vibrancy in you that really healed some wounds. And what I'm feeling in sense of what the edit is here, how this is something around cutting something out, is it's like my sense is like you may be acting too precious, too like you're still tending to growing something. And it's like, no, I need to grow more. I need to grow more. And it's like, no, what you were meant to grow and what that was meant to heal in you has taken place. And now it's time to move forward. So that could be that, in that sense of like you had maybe gone back into a learning environment, something's assimilated, and it's now time to put that out into the world. And you may still be feeling like, but I need to learn more. And it's like, no, it's time to act on that. Take it out into the world. You've hit the dead end of what you're supposed to learn here, and now it's time to create phenomena with that. Where in the other path, if you are finding your productivity and sort of place in learning environments, whether as like a role or just thriving in a learning atmosphere for some reason, it's sort of like, again, it's like whatever you started over on or like had to redo or rethink, it's like you've peaked in that, and now it's time to, this feels like it's like time to take a role in the learning school or learning or mentoring environment. So like moving from the mentee to the mentor type of thing, or finding a role within that field. It's time to step out of the student phase. That's in either path, that's already something's assimilated there. But for those of you that are finding your place within that field, there's a role for you to step into there. It's ready, you're ripe, you're ready to step into a role there. If you're leaving, you know, coming from school and leaving that realm, it's time to cut the cord. You don't need to learn more now. It's time to have phenomena take place out in the world from what has assimilated. Yeah, so however that hits for you. Okay, we're going to roll an astrology dice just to get a little more context around this edit. Taurus. There's value. It's time, yeah, I mean, again, it's time to start exploiting something here. You've assimilated, you've learned what you need to, and it's time to start drawing value to you through this. Income, respect, honors, finding your voice in this, whatever it is to you. It's ready to attract value into your life. It's time to stop. This is a thread that's come through several of these readings. It's time to stop seeking and start or exploring. So there's a polarity of exploring and exploiting, and I don't use exploiting in a negative connotation. I just mean like utilizing, taking advantage of a skill, of, you know, something where you can receive from it. But I get this sense that there's been a lot of seeking, and it's time to, and exploring, but it's time to exploit things that are now assimilating in you. There's a full stop, there's a dead end to that exploring and seeking, because you're supposed to look the other way and now start exploiting, utilizing, exchanging on, creating value for yourself, putting out in the world something you've refined, you've mastered, you've made skillful. It's time to exploit that. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at any extra context or little nuggets that Spirit wants to bring through that either we have not touched on yet, or that just add context to. We'll just see what comes through. King of Swords. Yeah, your mind is sharp. You've really mastered some learning. And that makes and confirms to me, because reading this card, and for all of these cards, by the way, in each pile, I've more broadly interpreted instead of very literally. So that was like one thing that kept swimming in my head, is like I'm going a little against what the wording says here, that the answer you're seeking involves going to school. And I'm kind of saying like you're done with the learning though. It's like you've been there. And it's because of the nature of a south node. It's not, if this were the north node, to me it would be like, yeah, go back to school. But at the south node, it's time to be in your wholeness. And that doesn't So to me, that's saying like, you've done that though. You came to that dead end where you had to do this, and now you're done with that, and it's assimilated. And then this is confirming to me that yes, it has, in fact, you've really mastered some information, some new learning, some new skill that you've learned, some curriculum, something has really mastered in you. Now it's time to use it. It's time to wield your authority and put out the sharp mental understandings, the command of your mind that you've really honed. It's time to really wield that like a samurai wields a sword, with beauty and artistry and care, and almost more of an art form than a martial form, you know, like not on the attack, but as a performance. And then we've got Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, your life is about to shift. You're shifting gears from learning to, for some of you, switching from the student to the master. For others of you, just like really creating phenomena in the world due to what you've assimilated in some new learning. It's moving your life forward. It's time to switch gears and to move your life forward and to find yourself a new, bigger, broader possibility, and really using the inner workings that you've put together, starting to crank those and put them together and make them work in some way for you to really turn the wheels of your life towards bigger and better things. Yeah. A King of Pentacles. You guys, yeah, this is supposed to make you some money. And then, you know, looking at the Taurus up there too, you're supposed to, I do feel for a lot of you, it's like starting to look at how you can create some income on the mastery you've gained. There's the exchanges coming about that you have the potential to exploit here could really make you money. But look how the coin is coming out like a fan, but it almost looks like it's coming out of her heart. Because every single reading has had this. So there's 8 kings in this deck because each suit has a male king and a female king, and it doesn't matter what gender you relate to, they just have slight differentiations where the female king is showing that there's kind of a soulful command, a soulful authority coming through, whereas the male king is a little bit more of an authoritative command coming through. So like around your mind, around the new knowledge you've assimilated, there's like a real authoritative command coming through, but you're very much so connected to your heart in your authority of how you want to direct that, to exploit it, to make money, to draw an income. You want to do it in a way that feels aligned to your values, and it's sort of like trust yourself. You have the skill and the mastery and a real grasp of your intuition to know how to direct this, to make money in a way that aligns with you, to use this in a way that aligns for you. Yeah. And then last card, this one, 3 of Swords. Yeah, to me, this just really plugs back into that dead end, I think, and that healing wounds as well. I think that going back and relearning something, and the gardener to me, for whatever reason, makes me feel like there was some kind of starting over. I think there was a wound when you came to the dead end, a lot of disappointment, a lot of feeling of your path letting you down, your path disappointing you, your path almost injuring you. And now it's time to be back out on the path, even though it might be a different path, And there can be some fear there because of like the last effort of putting your knowledge and skill into the world just led to disappointment, but it's because there were some holes in it and you kind of started over and you relearned some things more holistically, and it really healed where those holes were and where your blind spots were and where there were some maybe inadequacies even in terms of our modern world. I'm not saying anything about you is inherently inadequate, but in terms of the standards of how our modern world operates and where you're trying to operate, there may have been some things that weren't quite up to par to find that success, and that's why there was like that dead end. And you just have to trust now that that's been healed and you have a whole new solid foundation under you. And you've really cultivated a new kind of garden and a new understanding of how to thrive, how to grow things in your life. And you've learned some amazing things, and phenomena is about to take place in your life. And this Three of Swords is just saying, like, it's time to put it back out there. It's time to take the wounds that your heart sustained from kind of coming to that dead end and having disappointments, and being back out there with more elegance, more soulfulness, more, you know, when we've been on the path and we've been wounded, a lot of times when we decide to show back up and be back out there, we hold a certain wisdom that others who haven't been through hardship do not have. There's an elegance in that. There's an ability to hold more. There's a deeper respect for the successes you find and the way you find them. And this is just saying that being back out on the path, starting to put yourself back out there after going through a learning cycle, you're coming back into the path in a much more mature, it's like you were a maiden before and now you're a queen, and you have the wounds to show for that. Every queen has gone through wounds before she becomes the queen. And that's what I feel for you. Whatever gender you are, it doesn't matter. You're coming from like a slightly naive way of putting yourself into the world and believing in yourself to a much more empowered and powerful way of doing that. Elegant, wise, having been through it. Character building way. And there's just something really graceful and and beautiful about this, about the way you're going to show back up as you step back out on the path in some way of like putting your knowledge, your skill, where you direct maybe career, position in the world, or just make things happen in the world for you. It does feel career work centric with kind of, we've talked about income and you're going to show up with so much more command, so much more maturity, so much more power this time. And it's just time to trust that. And the thing about this reading being inspired by a South Node eclipse, you don't have to be here when that happens, is any eclipse, but specifically on a South Node eclipse, the universe will enforce things. We can make decisions to make those edits for ourselves of like, time to put myself back out there. But if we don't, the universe will enforce it. So it happens one way or another. It's just a little more smooth if we take the courageous step and do it for ourselves and kind of make the cuts and edits. It's when the universe does it for us, it's a little less co-creative because we're not involved, and it can feel a little more turbulent, just because we have some resistance. But the good news is it's happening one way or another. that you're being pushed back out into the world. It's time to be back on the path, using the new knowledge you have, the new things you've learned, and coming back out as this wise being rather than a kind of naive fool. I don't want to say fool, I'm just thinking in terms of tarot archetypes. It's like the fool versus the king or the queen, you know, it's like such a difference. And it's, yeah, time to step up to that. It's time to step into that and to embrace it. And I think it's just going to unfold kind of more easily and more beautifully than you would have thought. I think that there's fear of letting go of like, have I learned enough? And fear of like, I don't want to be back out there. It's so harsh. But once you decide to put yourself back out there, or you're pushed back out there, it's like things will be so much more flowing than they were before. You have such more command and magnetism going in this time. Okay, this is where I'm going to leave you guys. If this resonated, I always appreciate the things like, share, and subscribe. And definitely just really grateful for everyone that shows up continuously for my readings. It means a lot. But also even further grateful for the kind and thoughtful comments out there. It just feels like a little human touch, even if it's just a little emoji or something. But I'm grateful for you just to be here. So yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day wherever and whenever you are. All right, see you guys.